Al Jazeera Podcasts.
As 2025 comes to a close, we're spending these 2 weeks looking back at the stories that defined the year. Today's episode, how Zohran Mamdani shocked New York. This episode first aired on June 27th, 2025. All dates and references are from that time.
Today, he's the man who's taken New York by storm.
I will be your Democratic nominee for the mayor of New York City.
A 33-year-old Democratic socialist is now the frontrunner to be New York City's next mayor, and he may have just toppled a political dynasty along the way. So, how did he do it? I'm Manuel Rapalo, and this is The Take. A long-shot candidate who was polling at 1% as recently as February, Zohran Mamdani wasn't expected to make an impact in New York City's mayoral race. But with a campaign focused on making the city more affordable, mixed with charisma and a strong social media strategy, Mamdani galvanized an army of nearly 50,000 volunteers into a movement.
Tonight, we made history. In the words of Nelson Mandela, it always seems impossible until it is done.
Mamdani's victory in Tuesday's Democratic mayoral primary now means that he's the frontrunner to become the city's mayor later this year. He'd also be the first Muslim to hold the position. Our guest today has been following this story from the beginning.
My name is Max Rivlin-Nadler. I'm a reporter and worker owner at Gate NYC, a local news outlet in New York City.
Max, welcome to The Take. It's nice to see you. Zohran Mamdani, that's what we're talking about today. Nobody really knew who this guy was up until fairly recently. So who is he? How did he pull this off in the New York Democratic mayoral primary?
Yeah, that's a great point that you brought up, that nobody knew who he was. If you asked the average New Yorker back in March, as many polls did, who is Zohran Mamdani? Single digits would know, low single digits would know who he is. And now he's likely to be the next mayor of New York City. So very wild times in New York City. He is a state assembly member representing Astoria.
Yes on this bill, and I'm very much in support of this.
He was first elected in 2020 as part of a wave of Democratic socialists who were elected to the state legislature right in the middle of the uprising surrounding Black lives. He won, essentially promising priorities that would be befitting of a democratic socialist. He was laser focused on affordability, the needs of tenants. Before he became a state legislator, he was a foreclosure specialist. So he was working for a local community organization, helping people who are facing foreclosure in Queens avoid foreclosure. So he was laser focused on the needs of low-income homeowners. And then when he was a state legislator, he was able to use his position to advocate for people like taxi drivers who had found themselves under crushing amounts of debt. And as a result, several had actually committed suicide. So he went on hunger strike with them to secure a bailout package. He worked actually with the U.S. Senator Chuck Schumer on that, kind of showing that even though he was this low-level state legislator, he could actually have large impacts at the city level.
My father-in-law was a cab driver, and he worked 7 days a week. He still had to work very hard, but why did he buy it? Just like you. It was a way to have a decent life in the American dream.
What we want to make sure is the money that you fought in Washington be used to provide dignity.
So he was somebody who was active in New York City, but certainly not somebody who was considered a top-tier contender.
So, not a long resume, but it does seem, like you said, that he brought those policy ideas that he had as an assemblyman into his mayoral campaign. You covered this campaign very closely, Max. What have you heard from voters when it comes to those policies that you just listed?
So the first thing Zohran Mamdani did as a candidate was he went to neighborhoods in the Bronx and Queens where people had, after the 2024 election, shifted rightward. And it was especially among minority, immigrant, low-income communities. And Democrats were freaking out in New York City? How was this rightward shift? How could these people either vote for Trump or not vote at all? So he went and made a series of videos where he's talking to people on the street, just random people.
He voted for Trump.
I voted for Trump.
I vote for Trump.
Me too.
Before I voted Democrat, at this moment I voted Donald Trump.
And a lot of it came down to affordability. Well, groceries are more expensive. Rent keeps going up. The bus fare keeps rising. The buses are too slow. I'm worried about quality of life. I'm worried as a business owner, I'm hit with way too many fines. All of these things he was hearing basically helped craft his larger message for the mayoral campaign, which was around affordability.
I'm Assemblyman Zohran Mamdani, and I'm running for mayor to freeze the rent for every rent-stabilized tenant.
Wait, you're gonna freeze my rent?
Yes.
Did I hear rent freeze?
Yes! This guy's gonna freeze the rent.
That's the story in New York City right now. I think a lot of people, what was at the top of their mind was actually being able to afford to live in New York City as a non-billionaire, as a non-millionaire, as a working person. And New York City has seen a massive exodus of working class people from the city. So he was able to create a campaign that focused on three main planks, which was free buses, free childcare, and freezing the rent for New York City's rent-stabilized tenants. Can he deliver on all of those?
Yeah, no, I think that message of affordability, I mean, you're coming to us from New York City. It's the largest city in the United States. It's the most expensive city to live in the United States, but it's a message that is resonating outside of New York City as well. So Mamdani ran this campaign on some pretty ambitious policy objectives, but this campaign was also propelled by his charisma. This is a guy who, in his 20s, had a bit of a fledgling rap career. I think this at this point has become viral, but he went by the name Mr. Cardamom with songs like Number One Spice.
Bring the flavor to the fish, bring the flavor to the rice. Who's the number one spice? Who's the number one spice? Bring the flavor to the fish, bring the flavor to the rice. Who's the number one spice? Oh, you got a knife? Good price.
What is it about Mamdani's personality, Max, or his character, rather, that's connecting and resonating so much, not only with New Yorkers, but with people all over the country?
I mean, it takes 5 minutes of being around him as a candidate that he has an insane amount of talent as both a charismatic individual and somebody who's able to speak to people where they're at. He's extremely warm around people. He is extremely composed and ready to talk to people where they're at about issues. You know, it's on the level of in Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, where their actual districts overlap in terms of these magnetic personalities that are able to translate left-wing ideas to the general public and kind of take it away from the portrayal of them as part of the loony left to, wait, you know, this is actually normal in much of the world. Some of the policies that I'm proposing, this has actually been done. It's not taken out of thin air. You know, there's two ways that he really capitalized on his charisma, was that he made these incredibly viral videos.
You have shared our message with the very New Yorkers you've lived alongside for years, but never had the chance to meet. And make no mistake, this campaign is reaching every corner of this city.
He had a great video team around him where, you know, these things on TikTok or Instagram, even in WhatsApp groups, they were racking up hundreds of thousands of views, each new video, right? And it shows him talking to real people. It shows him interacting with cab drivers, people who run halal carts, going to iftar. He was all over the place during Ramadan. It's allows him to reach people outside of the traditional media, but also not in a way that doesn't feel organic. So that was, you know, extremely compelling to voters, was that there was this guy that seemed personable and that you could connect with. At the same time, when you see him actually out and about, I think it's good to contrast him with the person he was ultimately
I'm glad you bring this up because there's one point here in that sort of accessibility and approachability that you describe, and it's the fact that Mamdani walked the length of Manhattan to talk to voters, to connect with voters. This is something that I think you were getting at right now, contrasting with former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo, the biggest contender here in this mayoral primary. It's really hard to imagine Cuomo walking the length of Manhattan to connect with voters. I see you shaking your head.
Yeah, I mean, just staying on Cuomo for a second, he ran an absolute, the safest campaign of all time, which ended up being the most reckless campaign, which is that he never interacted with voters. He never interacted really with the media outside of truly controlled spaces. He just kind of viewed it as that he would be able to win on name recognition alone. He famously, at least to me, parked before he went in to speak at a union hall right in the middle of 8th Avenue. Just in the middle of the street. I've never seen anything like that. And
I was wondering what you were getting at with this is, I see. He's out of touch.
Yes. I mean, out of touch, but also just antisocial, right? Like to park your car in the middle of the street. I'm talking about a traffic lane here. I'm not talking about double parking. He just left it there and went inside. And his campaign said, no, it's okay. The NYPD understands that, he's the former governor. He's running for mayor. He's allowed to do that. The NYPD actually got back and was like, says who? Nobody could do that. That's not allowed. So
can I just say that in terms of a traffic infraction compared to what he resigned for in disgrace after 13 women accused him of sexual harassment, doesn't seem quite as bad by comparison.
Absolutely. But, I'm just saying it exemplifies the tendencies of this guy, and even feeds into the situations he put himself in with those women of being entitled to things, right? He is entitled to things. And that is something that Mamdani did not take for granted. Obviously, when you're polling at 1% 3 months before an election, you're not going to feel entitled to everything. But even, I joined him for the last 3 hours of that walk that he did this weekend.
We have just begun our walk through the entirety of Manhattan. We're at Inwood Hill Park at the tip top. We're outside because New Yorkers deserve a mayor that they can see, they can hear, they can even yell at. Good, bro. Election's on Tuesday. Tuesday! Thank you, my brother.
People on the street running up to him. And that's real retail politics. Coming up to you, shaking your hand, getting a selfie with you, telling, oh my God, it's you. I mean, it was really funny. He's going through kind of our nightlife area in downtown Manhattan, the East Village, Lower East Side at around 1 a.m. And so people are like, oh, that's Zohran. Oh, what are you doing here? It got people excited. It was like a mayoral candidate at 1 a.m. Well, who knows what you're up to, is walking by and he's like, hey, how's it going? Good to see you guys. Vote on Tuesday. Like, come on, that's real old school politics. So the social medium, that might be new, but the actual getting out there and generating excitement, that is as old as time.
More with Max after the break. Max, there's one factor in this election that I think is interesting. I don't want to get too into the weeds with this, but I'm hoping that you can explain what ranked choice voting is and how did that impact the campaign.
So New York City is one of the few places in the country that has this system called ranked choice voting, which basically says you are allowed to rank your 5 favorite picks for mayor. It essentially democratizes the race a bit more by saying you shouldn't always vote defensively, right? We're in the United States very used to voting, well, listen, I don't love this candidate, but I hate the other guy, so I'll vote for this person.
The all or nothing system.
Totally, first past the post. And this one says, listen, if you love a candidate, but they're polling at around 2%, you could still rank them number 1. Basically what they do is they go, okay, after everyone has ranked 5 candidates, we're going to start eliminating candidates by who is in last place. So we get rid of the last place person, and all of this person's second place rankings gets redistributed again and again and again until somebody gets past 50 points. So in this case, we saw Zohran Mamdani, who was all of a sudden leading the field outside of Cuomo, because you got to remember what an upset this is. Cuomo was winning in every single poll pretty much. Mamdani was the clear number 2 around right before the election. And the guy who was in third place, the city controller, Brad Lander, cross-endorsed with Mamdani. And they said, you know what? If you're voting for me, number 1, vote for this guy, number 2, vice versa. We're essentially running a campaign together. And if you add our votes up, we will defeat Andrew Cuomo. And people were fascinated by it. Both Lander and Mamdani went on the Colbert Show, late night with Stephen Colbert, and talked about this novel form of voting that basically politicians could work together.
We both agree, for starters, that corrupt, abusive Andrew Cuomo should not be allowed anywhere near City Hall. And we know that by teaming up, a majority of New Yorkers won't choose him.
So, Max, it's a campaign that has been described as being a joyous campaign, but there is a serious note that I want to get into here, and it's what some of Mamdani's opponents have been saying and trying to cast him as this anti-Semite because of his pro-Palestine views. There's also been questions peppered in by the media. You mentioned the Colbert interview over his position on Israel, which many have argued shouldn't be such a big focus on such a local election.
Does the state of Israel have the right to exist?
Yes, like all nations, I believe it has a right to exist and a responsibility also to uphold international law.
Would you visit Israel as mayor?
I've said in a UJA questionnaire that I believe that you need not travel to Israel to stand up for Jewish New Yorkers.
Just yes or no, do you believe in a Jewish state of Israel?
I believe Israel has the right to exist.
Where does this fixation with asking Mamdani about Israel come from?
It comes from the fact that if you had asked me, much like a lot of this campaign, whether somebody who is unabashedly pro-Palestinian, who believes in equal rights for Palestinians who live inside of Israel, for somebody who supports the boycott, divest, and sanction movement, could win the New York City mayoral primary, that I would laugh you out of the room, not, a few months ago. So
that's a perception that many in New York would share.
Absolutely. It seemed as though it's this third rail of politics. Obviously, New York City has the largest out of all cities outside, I believe, of Tel Aviv, has the largest Jewish population. But Jews in New York City are not a monolith by any means. We have an organization here, Jews for Racial and Economic Justice, who's one of the biggest backers of Mamdani, right? They represent the minority view of American Jews that, Israel is committing war crimes in Gaza and the West Bank, and blind support for the state of Israel should be discouraged. And that is something that Mamdani has not wavered from. So I think a lot of candidates here thought they could really get him, being like, well, you're obviously anti-Semitic because you don't blindly support the state of Israel. To which his response was, obviously I'm not anti-Semitic. Here's all of these Jewish supporters I have. I've never said anything anti-Semitic. I've only criticized the state of Israel. And if criticizing the state of Israel makes me anti-Semitic, then that's not something I agree with. And the media really pestered him on this.
And Max, Mamdani also talked about receiving Islamophobic death threats.
Absolutely. I mean, his last week on the campaign trail, he actually did kind of break down in tears talking about the threats that he's received, the threats that his family's received.
I get messages that say the only good Muslim is a dead Muslim. I get threats on my life. On the people that I love.
I think at that moment it became really real to him that were he to win, this is something that is not going to go away. And the amount of Islamophobic rhetoric that we've seen even since his victory, you have Marjorie Taylor Greene posting the Statue of Liberty in full body covering, ridiculous stuff like that. I mean, they're going to go after him. New York City has never had a Muslim mayor.
Yeah. And you know what, Max? I'd like to back this up a little bit to talk about those perceptions as well. There were folks who think there's no way that this guy who's being perceived, at the very least, as being anti-Semitic could win. What do you think it says about the electorate that he did win?
The electorate that he did win is young Democrats. And if you look at the polling on Israel-Palestine, this is something that Democratic Party is going to have to reckon with, in that support for Israel among young Democrats is the lowest that it's ever been, especially after, the assault on Gaza. And so it is not surprising to me that young people did not view this as any way an obstacle to voting for Zohran Mamdani, because they agree with him. I think young voters, and especially young Jewish voters, are really sick of this framing that they kind of have to have this blind loyalty to Israel above all other politics. The same issues affecting young Jewish New Yorkers affect the rest of New York as well. Affordability, costs of childcare, rapid transit, protecting trans rights. These are things that the Mamdani campaign was connecting with them with. And honestly, after what we've seen over the past 2 years, there's a lot of anger among young Jewish voters, especially in New York City, where there's a ton of organizing around this, that the expectation from them is to vote on behalf of a country in the Middle East and not the neighbors next to them and the people that they know and the people that they love. I mean, a lot of the main figures in Zohran Mamdani's campaign were they themselves Jewish New Yorkers who were deeply involved in the ceasefire movement.
Max, what would the significance be of the city of New York having a socialist Muslim mayor with a background in India and Uganda? What would it mean for these communities?
It's seismic. To get representation like that, these communities have been hungry for somebody who doesn't just pander to them, who actually speaks to them, who speaks their language.
बात ये नहीं है कि मैं क्या बनूंगा, बात ये है कि मैं क्या करूंगा हमारे कम्युनिटीज के लिए और हर एक न्यूयॉर्कर के लिए। मैं हमारे शहर को अफोर्डेबल बनाऊंगा। न्यूयॉर्कर्स मुश्किल से अफोर्ड कर रहे हैं रोटी, कपड़ा और मकान।
The resonance and the response to that was just huge. Just to be heard in your own voice.
Who would have thought? People want to be seen.
Yeah, I mean, people want to be seen and heard from people that look like them, that look like their children, that actually want to carve out a future for them in major American cities. Take note. And if it comes along with leftist policies that maybe you don't think fit the bill for the National Party, look at the results. These are the voters of the future. And everybody should be taking note.
And that's The Take. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to give it a like so more people can find this episode. And I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Let me know what stood out to you, or if there's anything you'd like us to dive deeper into next time. I'm always checking in, so let's keep the conversation going. See you tomorrow.